And the first one is our dear guest, Arjan van den Eijk, which is a Chief Operation Officer from E.ON Drive Infrastructure. I would say one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fast charging operator in Europe with big plans. So Arjan, could you hear us? Are we online?
Yes, good morning, Daniel. Greetings from Frankfurt.
Good morning, Arjan. We know that you have to be off at 11 sharp, so no other words from my side. Let's jump directly to your presentation. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and nice to be here. Nice to meet everyone. Arjan van den Eijk, responsible for everything around operations and deployment at E.ON Drive Infrastructure. What is E.ON Drive Infrastructure? Let me start with that. E.ON Drive Infrastructure is a charge point operator, which means we build, own and operate charging infrastructure across Europe. We do that in 9 countries, and we operate currently around 4,600 charge points, growing fast. What is important for us from a strategy perspective? We want to build a sustainable world, meaning our credo is charging for everyone, everywhere. That means we have several use cases that we plan for people to integrate charging as good as possible in their life. It can be charging in the street if you don't have a home where you can charge in your garage. It can mean charging at the supermarket where you have to stay anyway to do your shopping. It can mean charging at the highway where you need to go for a longer distance and you want to quickly charge your car and get on again. So this is what we do. And we do that in big style across Europe. You see some numbers here that give you a feeling how many charging points, how many charging acts in 2022. And for us, the future is very clear. We want to be a leading charge point operator in Europe. And that is what we are doing currently. We are building around 1,000 HPC charge points a year. So what are the challenges if you're a charge point operator and you want to build out infrastructure? Speaker beforehand already said it. It's not in every country the same situation. We have different grades of utilization of our infrastructure. We have different growth rates in different countries. And for us, the most important thing is find the right locations and build out at the locations where we can integrate this charging in the life of people. For instance, in Czech, a good example is our cooperation with Kaufland. Building on the parking places of Kaufland and making sure that we are there where the people are doing their shopping is a great example of integrating charging in the life of EV drivers. So what are the challenges that we face finding those sites? For us, it's very important that we get the right grid connection. And grid expansion, grid capacity across Europe is an issue. It's very clear the grid is limited. We have countries where already it's almost impossible to get large connections because certain areas are so congested that they are not available anymore. So this will be a huge task for European grid operators to make sure there is enough available, and we come to the biggest challenge in this perspective, truck charging a little bit later. There is enough grid capacity available to build out. Another important issue is the supply chain, having the hardware available. The chargers is not easy, but it's not the biggest problem. Our biggest problem is transformers and substations. There are delivery times taking up to over 12 months for transformer stations. And a transformer station is quite an expensive piece of hardware, costs usually 100,000, 150,000 euros. And you cannot keep that in large amounts in stock. You need to really order it when you need it, because it's also depending a lot on where are you building. What is the technical situation where you need to build? So this supply chain makes it for us not easy to say, okay, I can build out within a very short time frame. As soon as I close the contract with the site owner, I can build out and we're ready to go. Another important one is bureaucratic processes. We read a lot in the newspapers nowadays on subsidies that are available or are not available, European subsidies, country-specific subsidies. For the EV driver, it's not very helpful if they don't know how the subsidies are going to develop in the coming years. Changing a government usually leads immediately to changing regulations again. And this bureaucratic system that takes a lot of time and is unclear for a lot of people is not helping us at the moment. It's the same for us as infrastructure providers. There are funds available to build out infrastructure, and all of a sudden they're not available anymore. So where do you calculate with in your business cases? And legislation is the last point I want to mention here. The requirements are changing a lot. And for instance, in Germany, we have quite a complex calibration law, which is not there in the rest of Europe, which makes building up in Germany quite more expensive than it is in the rest of Europe. What is helping us is the AFIA, which is already mentioned. So where we are finally on a European scale standardizing things like how do we use payment on charging stations. All charging stations in the future need to have credit card terminals available, which makes it more easy for our customers to charge and to pay. So I hope this gives you a bit of a feeling on what are the things that are challenging us when we try to build out infrastructure in a large scale and at a high speed. So what are some of the developments that we see in our industry at the moment? A speaker before said it already, we need high power charging. A lot of countries still have good infrastructure when it comes to AC charging in the cities. For instance, the Netherlands have a lot of AC chargers in the cities, which is nice if you have the whole night to charge your car. But if that's not the case, you need to charge quickly. Rapid chargers are not available everywhere. So we need to really expand high power charging. We also need to look at smarter charging solutions to use this grid management and load management to make sure where we have congestion in the grid, that we optimize the use of the charging parks for not, let's say, overstretching the grid. Meaning that we make sure that if a second, the third, the fourth car comes into the charge parks, we divide the power in a way that the grid is not overused. But this goes much further in the future, and I come to that in a moment. E-transport, I mentioned it already. This is decarbonizing the transport in Europe is one of the biggest levers we have to decrease the carbon problems we are having. And all the big truck manufacturers are having models out there by now, but nobody's really sure yet. Some of them are still also betting on hydrogen. And so now it's very important that we join forces in every country with the grid operators, with the local governments, with us as CPO, to find the right locations for truck charging, where there is grid available, because we're talking in the end about megawatts that need to be available to charge trucks at a significant scale. Find those locations and start building infrastructure. The will is there, the capital is there, but the coordination is still very difficult. So what we do as E.ON Drive Infrastructure, we started in Sweden, we started in Norway, where there's already quite some adoption of e-transportation, simply building the first sites. Trying, learning together with OEMs, are working together with Traton, with MAN, with Mercedes, making sure that we learn how this is going to work in the future. How do we make sure that we reserve time for the driver to charge when he needs to stop anyway? So there are two more things that I would like to mention that I think are very interesting in the development of infrastructure. One is dynamic pricing. So what we are testing at the moment in Denmark is offering different prices to customers depending on the amount of renewable energy that is available on the grid. As you can imagine, during the day when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, there is more sustainable energy available on the grid than at night when the sun is not shining. That means that the energy prices are lower at that moment in time. The grid usage is heavy, and we help using that renewable energy if we make sure our customers are incentivized to use our chargers at that moment in time. So with this dynamic pricing, we help everyone. We help our customer because they can charge a lower price. We help the grid operator because the grid is utilized when it's needed. We help the environment because we use the renewable energy to the max. And for us, it means a better utilization of our chargers. So this is a very important development that will help everyone. The last one I want to mention, and then I want to go to questions, is battery storage. Battery storage is a very important point in the development of the grid, but also in the development of charge parks. As you can imagine, if you have a large charge park, it helps to have a battery on site to make sure you can use that as a buffer between the grid connection and the chargers. So that gives you the opportunity to load balance and to not make too much use of the grid at the moments when it's not available. But it gives you other opportunities as well. It gives you the opportunity to use that renewable energy and store that when it's available and give it out when it's not available. It gives you the opportunity to offer flexibility services to the grid operators who can use the battery when there is a disbalance in the grid. So this development of using batteries in bigger charge parks is a very important one for us as an energy company. And we just started in Denmark having a first pilot with the first 1 megawatt battery, making sure that we start integrating these batteries in our charge parks. And so you see we do a lot of piloting and testing in Denmark, Sweden. Very logical because there is a high adoption of e-mobility there. There's a high percentage of cars. There is a very experienced usage of infrastructure. So for us, it's easier to test out things there because the customers are used to it. So this is what I wanted to share with you. And now I still have a few minutes left for questions. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arjan. I will use 2 questions from the audience that came. Actually, the first one I believe will be very short for you to answer. There is the question whether you consider entering the Slovakian market anytime soon.
We are currently in the Czech market, quite active. Slovakian market, not yet. So on the short term, it's not planned. But on the long term, it's very well possible.
Yeah, it looked like the person that is asking would like to see you there, actually. It was kind of between the lines. Okay, the second question, I'm not sure whether you will have a full context, but there is a question in more general, but let's speak about the E.ON. If there will be enough energy, if I interpret it, if there will be enough energy in 2030 to support actually the amount of cars that will be connected to grid to charge. So are you somehow involved in the discussions within the E.ON? What are the measures that E.ON is, let's say, doing to have the adequacy in upcoming years?
Yes, this is the key question for everyone. So this is not an easy one to answer in a few minutes, because there are 2 big things we need to do. First of all, we need to raise the amount of renewable production. Wind, solar, we definitely need to up our game there, and we're trying to do that across the board. But this is not the only thing. We also need to look at hydrogen. We need to look at other solutions to get renewable production available in a much larger scale than we have it right now. This is the only solution. There is no alternative. Yeah, we can look at building more coal-fired plants or gas-fired plants. It's not a solution. Yeah, so we really need to focus on renewable production. And the second thing is we need the grid to be able to transport all that energy and to work with the high level of volatility that comes with it, with renewable sources. So E.ON is investing on both sides, so both in the renewable energy production as well in the grid, a lot of money across Europe. Yeah, billions and billions of euros to make sure that we make this happen in the future. But this is, of course, not something we can do by ourselves. We need a lot of more energy companies and a lot of more governments to work together to solve this problem going forward. If we don't do anything large scale in the coming years, we will have a problem in 2030, especially if truck charging goes the way it is going right now. We will have really bigger congestion problems than we have right now. But there are solutions, and we are very hard working on it and committed on solving this problem going forward, because it's our business, and we need to solve this problem for future generations.
Yeah, I think this is completely right. I am also kind of involved in the energy business within the Unicorn as well. So I know that the European parties, transmission system operators, distribution system operators, the ones that generates the power, it's a really hot topic for them. Have been already a hot topic for some time. So it's something that the adequacy has to be actually solved. So it's not a new topic, but it's not going to be easy. That's definitely a truth. Thank you very much, Arjan. I really appreciate that having you here. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great conference.